Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a video on the basics of astrology, and I'm thinking about making this a series because this is not going to cover anywhere near the beginning of astrology. There's just so much to learn and it could go on forever and ever, and I still literally have so much to learn. But a lot of people have been expressing interest in astrology ever since I started posting videos about it, and I decided to make a little informational video on what the planets mean. And basically this video will just be about the planets themselves, what they mean and what they represent in your chart and in astrology. And then maybe in future videos, if you guys are interested, I'll move on to the signs, the houses, the aspects, the asteroids, the whole 9 yards. Starting with your sun sign. Your sun sign is the sign that you already know and that you tell people that you are when you first meet them. So my sun sign is Aquarius because when I was born, the sun was in Aquarius. And personally, I think that if you ever are a skeptic about astrology or you don't believe in astrology, it's because you have only studied your sun sign and you've based everything you know about astrology on people's sun signs, your compatibility based on your sun signs, etc. When really we have a whole chart with a bunch of complex things in it that you probably weren't even aware of. For example, I am an Aquarius, my sister is an Aquarius, but we are so different. We are almost opposites, and that is because we have completely different charts. And the only thing that we really have in common is our sun sign. We also do the same moon sign, but everything else is different. And that is why you can be the same sun sign as someone, but also be so different. So, cutting to the chase, what this basically means, your sun sign is kind of the essence of who you are. It is pretty much the most important sign in your chart. Although it doesn't represent your emotions, how you're feeling on the inside necessarily, it doesn't always represent how you are in love. And yeah, basically if you ever feel like you don't relate to your sun sign, it's probably because there are other more dominant signs in your chart that are kind of overpowering your sun. I've heard a lot of people describe the sun as your ego, so that is a good way to think of it because your ego doesn't really go deep past the surface. It's kind of just how you like to express yourself and how you find meaning in your life. Just as an example, since my sun sign is Aquarius, that tells the most about how I express myself, how I carry myself, and how I find meaning in my life. And because Aquarius is all about being different, standing out, being a rebel, kind of going against outdated ideas, that is kind of what my whole existence has been centered around my whole life. I do like to be a little bit rebellious. Just kidding, I literally never break the rules, but in trends and when it comes to what's popular, I never ever wanted to fit in. I was always that person that was just if she's wearing blue socks, I'm wearing red socks because I'm not doing whatever she's doing. And that's kind of the core essence of who I am and who I've always been. That's just one example of how your sun sign can manifest in you, and it is a big part of who you are, but it by no means is all of who you are, and that's definitely why you might not resonate with everything having to do with your sun sign. So the next most popular, I would say, sign in your chart is your ascendant, or in other words, your rising sign. This is actually not a planet, so technically it doesn't fit in with this whole video, but it is a really important sign, so I do want to talk about it. I'm not completely sure what the scientific explanation is of your ascendant, but when you're looking at it on the chart, your ascendant is always where your first house is placed. And I know that probably makes no sense if you've never looked into houses or anything. But I have heard some people explain that it has something to do with the sign that was rising on the horizon at the time of your birth. And somehow, some way, this dictates how you come off to other people and how people perceive you and what you seem like on the surface. Personally, I'm a Taurus rising, so to other people, that means they perceive me as a Taurus. In other words, they think I'm very earthy. They think I pay great attention to material items and I love comfort and luxury and things like that, and I could totally see that being true about me because you do still, even though your rising sign is about how other people perceive you, I think you do definitely relate deeply to a lot of the qualities of that sign just because it is such a big part of who you are, and that is why you come off as that way to other people. So I do relate a lot to all the Taurus memes and everything that I see online about you know, just loving food, complaining when I'm not comfortable, loving soft bed sheets. I mean, I know that goes without saying for almost anyone, but Taurus especially, it's all about comfort, material items, you know, that type of stuff. And I really, really do feel that. So if you have, let's say, a water sign as your sun sign, but you have a fire sign as your rising sign, that might explain why you never felt so delicate and soft as a typical water sign. And this is definitely something to look into if you feel like you don't resonate completely with your sun sign. Moving on to one of my favorite planets to look at in a chart is the moon. And this is obviously where the moon was placed during the time of your birth. And this represents the inner you. And the moon is all about your emotions, your internal reactions to things, how you process your emotions, like everything that goes on within you and that doesn't necessarily come out outside of you depending on the sign. That's what your moon sign is about. Sorry if I keep moving around, this lighting is just being weird. But my moon sign is in Scorpio, and almost anyone will tell you that that's one of the most intense, hard, challenging signs to have your moon in. And that is basically because Scorpio moons are so dramatic and they feel everything so intensely, but they do not want to show it. And that mixed with my Aquarius sun is a recipe for disaster, because I absolutely hate showing my emotions. I literally will be suffering so hard and you will never know, because I just would rather die than tell anyone that I'm suffering. And when you look at it that way in combination with your sun sign, it might explain things that you never knew how to explain about yourself. For instance, I always knew, since even before I knew that I was an Aquarius, that I was so uncomfortable expressing my emotions, and I never wanted anyone to know that I was suffering. And now that I have these planets to explain it, my life just makes so much more sense, honestly. Also, having a water moon does make you a lot more like intuitive, kind of psychic than the average person, and I do definitely have that Scorpio psychicness in me. It helps me spot out a fraud within 0.2 seconds of meeting them. So if I have met you, I literally have you all figured out from the moment I meet you, and that is just the tea. So the next prominent sign in the chart is Mercury. And Mercury is also a very interesting placement to look at, although it's rare that your Mercury sign will be anything except your sun sign, because they are so close in proximity. If anything, I think it can only go one sign further from your sun sign, if that makes any sense. So Mercury is the planet of communication, and what this means is that whatever sign your Mercury falls in is indicative of how you communicate with others. So my Mercury is in Aquarius, same as my sun sign. Most likely yours will be in your sun sign too. If it's not, it's going to be one sign further, I think. And basically what that means for me, since Aquarius is so kind of unemotional and detached, this means that my way of communicating is exactly that, and I'm very focused on more logical things. I enjoy talking about logical things. I enjoy problem solving. I love word games, things that involve that, because for me, things are more rooted in logic than emotion, and that's how I prefer to communicate with people. Whereas if someone's Mercury is in Cancer, everything they're gonna say is gonna be rooted in emotion. They might complain, they might whine a lot, definitely just a more emotional approach to things. And also, something I forgot to mention is that each sign is ruled by a planet. So for Mercury, I believe Gemini and Virgo are ruled by Mercury. So basically what that means is that if your Mercury falls in Virgo or Gemini, then it will be functioning at its best, and you're probably really good at having conversations and communicating. So next is Venus, and this is my personal favorite sign just because it's like, you know, that typical planet associated with love and things like that, and that's exactly what it is. But it also isn't only about love. It can also be about friendships or relationships in general. It can be about your taste in clothing and decor. It can be about anything relating to beauty and like material items. So whatever sign that you have in your Venus dictates how you are in those areas of your life. So for example, my Venus is in Capricorn. This basically means that since Capricorns are so earthy and they're so steady and consistent and they just really love structure and routine, my love life will reflect that, and it has. Obviously, you guys know it's been almost 4 years with my boyfriend. We've never broken up. It's been going steady since I was like 16, and that is the most Venus Capricorn thing I've ever heard in my life. When it comes to finding out your compatibility with someone, it is so much more logical to look at your Venus placements rather than your sun signs, because while your sun signs do matter, maybe in arguments or in the way that you generally relate to each other, the Venus sign is basically the most important thing you should be looking at in a relationship, because if they're not compatible, it's likely that your ways of loving and like your love languages aren't going to be compatible either. When it comes to taste in clothing and decor, I don't think it's always very dependent on your Venus sign, but for me, I think it definitely is. Since my sign is Capricorn, clearly I love black. I love neutrals. Colors scare me. Patterns scare me. I love to be very predictable and kind of like hide behind my clothes, and I feel like that's very Capricorn. Whereas if your Venus is in Aries, for example, you might be a lot more daring with your fashion. You might like to catch attention with the way you dress, or you might like to wear like bright or like fiery colors. Also, if your Venus is in Aries, that's rough, because I know a few, and let's just say that they're on their 46th romantic partner. So the next planet is Mars, and Mars is interesting to look at because Mars dictates your anger and aggression and your motivation, and anything having to do with that motivation, that push forward or aggression, whatever sign is in your Mars, that dictates how you deal with those things. So my Mars is in Pisces, meaning I am absolutely not assertive at all, and that is completely true about me. I'm definitely very soft when it comes to confrontation. I don't confront people ever. I'd rather just like hold my tongue and act like nothing ever happened and hope for the best, because I am super sensitive when it comes to confrontation, and I'm literally that meme on Twitter that's like me trying to argue without crying. Like, I try to act really tough, but in reality, you know, my Mars is in Pisces, so I'm a soft little bitch. So the next few planets, which are Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they are generational planets, meaning that you will likely have the same signs in these as your friends, if you guys were all born in the same year, because these planets take several years to move out of each sign. So for these planets, it's not so much about the sign as it is about the house that it's in, which will be a whole other video. Houses are so interesting and can really change the way that you look at your chart. So I will talk about that in another video. But Jupiter is the planet of expansion. It's also the planet of good luck. So looking at your Jupiter placement, not so much the sign, but more so the house that it's in, can indicate where you will see the expansion in your life, where you will see the most good luck in your life, and how you can go about achieving that. On the other hand, Saturn is the planet of restriction. This kind of shows where you have difficulty in your life, where you might experience difficulty in your life during your Saturn return, which I believe is when we are like 28 to 29 years old. I will go into the houses in a later video, but just for example, my Saturn is in the 12th house, meaning that I have problems with keeping everything to myself and struggling silently and not asking for help. So that is definitely true about me, and it's definitely a very interesting placement to look at. This placement can also tell you about the luck you'll have regarding getting inheritances, your finances in the future, your health, your work, your real estate, basically anything depending on where it is. Uranus is one of my favorite planets because Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, so it's kind of like my planet. But Uranus is all about uniqueness, differentness, weirdness, and like quirkiness. So wherever your Uranus is placed in your chart kind of dictates where in your life you will see the most uniqueness or different or odd, or whether it's good or bad, it will be kind of unconventional. So just as an example, if your Uranus is in the first house, you might have an unusual appearance, or you might carry yourself very unusually or dress very quirky, because the first house can rule your physical appearance. Neptune is also very interesting because Neptune is the planet of confusion, blurriness, fogginess, grogginess. Like, you just really don't know what's going on whenever Neptune is in a sign or house. That's the confusing area of your life. So lucky for me, mine is in my 10th house, which is the house of career. So I will have a very confusing, strange time time trying to figure out what to do in my life. And you know, I already am experiencing that, so I'm not too frightened by that placement. But this could definitely tell you where you'll see the most confusion in your life. I have seen people with it in the 3rd house, which kind of means that they communicate and talk in a very unclear way. No one really knows what they're talking about ever. Basically, wherever your Neptune is, that's where things are a little bit unclear. Okay, so I basically went through all of the major planets in your chart, and there are definitely so much more to talk about. But let me know in the comments if you guys would even be interested in that. I'm not sure if you guys are that into astrology or if this is enough for you guys. So do let me know, and I will make videos about houses, how to read a chart, etc. Also, if you know your placements, comment some of them down below, especially the ones that you find are very interesting, and say something about you, because I would love to know a little bit more about you guys. And if you want me to read your chart, I do them for $10, so shoot me an email if you're interested in that. But either way, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.